Please introduce themselves.
Hi, Stephen Brown.
Shelley Fine, like everything should be.
Read again.
Rich Robbins.
Jody Fisher.
Madge Rosenberg.
Monica Barkley from Center for Independence of the Disabled New York, and I'm the community outreach organizer there.
What's your first name again?
Monica.
Monica. Now Wymore.
Amy Hyman from the Children's Aid Society.
And I'm Catherine. And Diana, can you introduce yourself?
Diana Howard from the Manhattan Borough Residence Office.
So I just want to actually recognize that Jody has been to every single one of our meetings. It's the first, and I was actually thinking that we've been meeting for 7 months since October, actually everyone in our task force has attended every meeting in the last 7 months, which I also think is really incredible and wonderful. Since our last meeting,
Can we introduce? We have one person. Hi, Luke. We didn't forget about you, okay? So, Luke, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? We have someone on the phone who is joining us.
Hey there, my name is Luke Hansen from the National Center on Health, Physical Activity, and Disability. And one of our big components of the work that we do is looking to increase, promote, advocate for, and otherwise just raise awareness about inclusive health opportunities. And that can be physical activity in a strict health sense, and also looking at those social and wellness opportunities that come from leisure activities like play. So hearing that you guys are trying to get an inclusive playground off the ground, Rita reached out. Seems like a very exciting opportunity. So I'm just here to listen in today and see what's going on and see what kind of assistance we may be able to offer you all going forward. So thank you very much for including me in the call.
welcome, Luke. It's great to have you with us. And we have a couple people that just walked in. So, do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quickly? Emmanuel?
Oh, yes. Hello, my name is Emmanuel Frifa. I'm the Assistant Director of the God of Riverside Beacon Program. We're an after-school program on the Upper West Side, and I'm here to help contribute and include our students within the building process of the playground.
Hi, how are you? My name is Isaac Booker. I work with the New York City Board of Education.
It's great to have everybody together. And since our last meeting, we've been working on a description of this initiative, a description of our vision and goals, which we will share with various audiences, potential funders, different city agencies, and we really want to get your input. So we have two versions. We have a Microsoft Word version. And does everybody have this?
I can project it if you want. I don't know if I have those.
That's okay. We have copies. So I will present this briefly, what's here. And then we also have a PowerPoint presentation that Mel will give. And then we'll discuss both and how we can improve it. And later, after the meeting, we can email you the Microsoft Word version. And then if you could give us any feedback that you might have within the next, let's say, week, that would be great.
And Luke, I can email, unfortunately, you don't have this in front of you, so I will email this to you after the meeting, okay?
We'll email it to everybody. So I'll walk everybody just quickly through the document and the layout, and then Mel will present this content as part of this PowerPoint. So in the first paragraph, we outline the purpose of our initiative, which is to develop and implement a model inclusive playground that reflects our vision of inclusive communities. And we define, in the next section, we define inclusive playgrounds as those intentionally designed for children with diverse abilities and disabilities to play together. So inclusive playgrounds use all aspects of design to foster interaction and learning, which is achieved through considerations of physical, sensory, and social inclusion. We argue in this document that inclusive playgrounds should follow the goals of universal design and should benefit the entire community, including children with typical and atypical needs and people of all ages, cultures, and genders, by advancing a culture of inclusion and becoming a platform for social change. In the next section,
We're doing all that in the playground.
that's the dream.
The change the world.
And
Set
then,
the bar high. For some people, and low.
and again, like Mel is going to go over a lot of these details in his PowerPoint, but the next section we describe why we selected Bloomingdale Playground as the first site for implementation of the model inclusive playground as we envision it. And so flipping ahead, there's a lot of data here that you can review later. On page 3, we describe the involvement of various community-based organizations that we've been working with, and including Goddard Riverside. And then also organizations that are familiar with best practices in inclusive design and the purpose of educational programming, which is an important component of the playground. And on page 4, we describe several playground design considerations, which Mel will go over in more detail. And then on the last page, we have stages of development and implementation. So it's just like a basic map of the document, and we'll email everybody a copy after the meeting. Does Rita have everyone's email address? Yeah, okay. So Rita can send it out after the meeting, and you can give us like specific feedback on any of the language. But now I want to turn it over to Mel.
Oh, yeah.
Put it all on
because
you there,
his
Catherine.
PowerPoint is a lot more exciting.
We're probably gonna have to move the copy.
Okay.
If anyone wants coffee, it's now in the back, okay?
Okay, those are my children.
I didn't know you were I'm really glad. I spoke with Susan too. We're so glad you could come. Thank you so much. And I hope there's gonna be some room for participation in terms of after you hear everything. Yeah, see what we're gonna do here.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
my job was basically just to take the document, the amazing document that Catherine wrote, and convert it into a form that will allow us to communicate to various audiences in a more graphic way. And the purpose of this largely is for garnering support for the playground, but ultimately to raise funds for the playground, because getting it off the ground is going to take a couple $1 million, and we want to make sure that everyone knows why and what's good about that. So it also gives us kind of a point of discussion. So as Catherine said, an inclusive playground is a public space essentially that allows people with disabilities and abilities to play together. And this is a groundbreaking concept, because originally we always think of playgrounds as designing it for able-bodied people and then adding accoutrement, little features that allow others to access what's already there. But it's not really designed to integrate the two populations or multiple populations. And of course, we know that people come with all kinds of abilities and disabilities. It's not just two groups, it's hundreds of groups of people. In fact, pretty much everyone. So we want to create a playground where everyone can play together and design it that way. So here's the distinction between what we call an accessible playground in today's lingo is one of these traditional prep playgrounds that has regular equipment and then usually adds, some lower placed equipment, some wider pathways, some ramps that add the access, but not really integration. So the traditional approach to accessible design reinforces the isolation and separateness that people of different abilities feel when they're in a group environment. By contrast, we're talking about universal design, and that is intended for all children and all aspects of their interaction. So the design is really, every piece of the design considers all different populations, and purpose is to promote integration encounters, which are these opportunities where people of different abilities can actually interact with each other around the equipment or around the design or around some activity. And through that, you get attitude change, which is what Catherine's document was talking about, is a platform for social change and different kinds of learning. So here are some of the goals of universal design is to enable and empower diverse populations and considering things that are not normally considered, like body fit, comfort, awareness of other people's abilities, understanding, and also, even more importantly, social integration. So not just looking at how do we build a toy that can be used by different abilities, but how do we build a toy that actually engages people in a fun way with different abilities, so it attracts all different kinds of people, not just, you know, a particular function, but something that brings everyone together using sight, sound, touch, and even in certain cases, taste and smell, but every aspect of our ability to sense our environment. So on the bottom, you see someone using a music toy, which is uses a lot of sound in play, and it's, you know, attractive to all kinds of people that can hear. On the right, you see touch and also sign language chart, so you can see people who can't hear, but interacting around a piece of equipment. More specifically and kind of a little more technically, the design considerations of universal design includes a lot more than just how do kids play, but also the surrounding environment, what are its limitations, you know, where can it fit in with the broader community, how do you access the playground, how do you leave the playground, you know, the preferences of all the different user groups, the aesthetics, do they appeal to people with limited hearing, limited sight, limited physical abilities, how is the layout serving all these different populations. How do we enter? How do we exit the playground? And then again, richness of play, including the relationships between all the different populations that would be served by the playground, and various components about how to look at the equipment rather than just is it fun and is it safe, but does it really optimize interaction among the different people playing, and can able-bodied people support other abilities in the context of that playground. So then the final piece there is the infrastructure and the amenities, all the things that serve the playground. They also are part of the overall design, universal design.
And I should just interject.
Yeah, and you should be interjecting all over it.
But, these principles, most of these came from an organization called Bet Shapiro. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Which one?
Beta Shapiro, the one from last week.
Yeah, yeah.
Came from, so that organization offered a design guide, and also the design guide that Mira Kaplan wrote from Let Kids Play. Those principles went into this, and all the sources are cited in the Microsoft Word document if you're interested. And then.
So this PowerPoint doesn't have references, but Catherine has all the references.
Yeah, there's tons of footnotes.
So basically, it's not just to create an area of inclusion, but a culture of an inclusion, providing for 3 levels of interaction: the physical interaction, the sensory interaction, including all the different senses, not just 1 or 2 senses, and then, of course, the social interaction. And we look at all of these things, deepening our experiences, transcending our differences, making new connections across different types of sensory perception, and empowering all children. And of course, you know, the bottom is to create a platform for social change. As Catherine mentioned in her document, not only is the physical design of the playground important, but that it must come with educational programming that really makes it clear that this is an inclusive playground, that there's signage that says this is an inclusive playground, this is how we play with, you know, the different equipments that are offered and different activities that are offered, making sure that even the design of the playground itself is a collaborative process among all the stakeholders, and that the playground also facilitates collaboration among all the people playing in the playground. And again, it's to create these opportunities for integrative encounters and also structured activities, not just kind of random play activities, but certain structured activities that have the intention of bringing kids together. So this is just a little history of the CB7 involvement in this project, kind of the history of it. The task force was formed, as you all know, because everyone's been here for every meeting except for me in the fall of 2014. But the process was to really review the principles of inclusive design because it was a brand new idea, something that is fresh for the city of New York, fresh for our neighborhood, and a real opportunity to serve populations that really have not been very well served in the past. It also was a process of researching the demographics of the Upper West Side in particular, and the playgrounds that currently exist on the Upper West Side. And I'll show you a map or two. But in the end, we identified this one playground at Bloomingdale, the Bloomingdale playground at 104th in Amsterdam, as a key opportunity to create a model of an inclusive playground. So here's some of the analysis we went through. On the left side, you see the elementary, that's K through 6 schools that have children with disabilities and the number of children in each school. So if you take a look at that, they're spread all throughout the district. But there's a high concentration of children with disabilities with the red bubble on the left and the blue bubble up to the north. We also looked at the rates of subsidized meals in the district because we thought that oftentimes underserved populations are often also populations who have lower incomes. And so here you see on the right side, you see a map of the distribution of lower incomes on the Upper West Side. And with the exception of the blue bubble on the southwest corner, a lot of the lower income is concentrated in the northern end of the district. And so those two considerations were important in our selection of the Bloomingdale playground. Now, you might also note that basically throughout the district, almost 1 in 5 kids display some sort of disability in the general population of the West Side. And by the same token, about almost 1 in 3 kids qualifies for a subsidized meal of some kind in the school system. So then we went on to look at the playgrounds themselves. On the left side, you see all the playgrounds on the Upper West Side in each of those schools. And there are only 2 playgrounds in the entire district that are either that are fully accessible. All the rest of them are maybe have a feature that's accessible, but none of the rest of the playground. So we have the Sapling Grove Playground on 70th Street, which is fully accessible. And then we have the Tecumseh Playground, I think it's on 78th.
And actually,
in Amsterdam.
Actually, to kind of clarify, Mel and I talked a lot about kind of how to visually represent this accurately. The one on 70th Street is the one that has the highest ranking. There's only, I think, 5 others citywide, and that's considered accessible for all children. And then there's a ranking of a 2, and that's the second one that's slightly further north.
Yeah.
The rest are either 3 or 4. They're not ranked at all, which means that they're not accessible.
May I just make a distinction though? It is accessible, but we're talking about a broad range of special needs. So when we talk about, accessibility, we're only talking about children that have motor impairments. We're not talking about children that are on the autistic spectrum, children that have visual impairments, hearing impairments. So it really does not accomplish anything about what we're talking about.
You're exactly right, Rita. Right. The blue dots represent the old traditional form of accessible design, not universal design. So
according to the ADA.
I think that's what really defines our concept. I just want to be very clear on that.
And even as we learned at a city council hearing, that they were looking for more compliance with ADA.
Right.
And our point to them was 20 years from now, we could be sitting here having the same discussion. It's time to plan for a next level while we're bringing other things up to snuff, and why put money into ADA accessible, when we want something more, why not do both together?
So maybe we can add to this playground ADA accessibility.
Yeah, okay.
Like just add the word ADA.
Okay. On the right side, you see what we call a cluster map, which is we took all the data and we combined both the people with disability, the populations with disability, and the people qualifying for meals. And you see the one with the number 7, the big circle, that is really kind of the center point of where a big concentration of people with disabilities and meal eligible kids are. So that's kind of where we focus. And also you see the 5, that's another cluster of need. But we also noted that the Sapling Playground is closer to that cluster. So that's an already served area at a certain set. Of course, it's not a perfect world. We'd like all of these, the whole place to be, every playground to be fully universally accessible. But really the focus was to look at the northern end of the district as close to that 7 cluster as we could find. And you can see the big lightning bolt there, that the Bloomingdale program, the Bloomingdale playground was something that was within range from that cluster, and also a few other attributes. So here's a picture of the Bloomingdale playground. It serves a diverse community. Almost all the children in the school and a couple of the schools nearby have the high percentage of disability and also the high percentage of free lunch eligibility. And it's a DOE and Department of Parks and Recreation playground, which means we can work with both of those departments to get support and funding and good design. And it's ready. It's due for renovation. So it was a perfect selection for what we're calling a model accessible playground. So here's the first stab at the budget. This is the Mel Wymore special budgeting. Basically, the total, including the work that including the grant that Catherine put in to just do some research and needs assessment for $53,000, comes to about $2.3 million. It's not a cheap playground, but it's also not out of whack with a general playground reconstruction project. So far, there's been a lot of work partnering with different departments and different groups in order to build awareness and support for this concept. And you can see the 2 schools that the Bloomingdale Playground serves are PS 145 and West Prep Academy. This group's obviously worked with all these, you guys know better than me, but this is a way to explain to some other groups how many people this task force have already reached out to get support and communicate the needs of the neighborhood. And the huge opportunity we have to build truly accessible playgrounds throughout the city. Here's a space for short video clips, Emmanuel. Just for kids, this is I envision it as a place where a couple of 15-second clips with kids talking about what a truly inclusive playground would mean for them. The next steps are to meet with stakeholder groups and identify their preferences and user requirements, to continue our research on the best practices for inclusive design, look at the areas surrounding Bloomingdale for partnerships, resources. What is the supporting infrastructure that could support the playground? What are the limitations of that area that we'd have to grapple with? And then, of course, refine the budget and secure the funding. This is like, what can you do? Participate and spread your enthusiasm and get some money if you can. And that concludes our presentation.
So,
I have a question. On the playground itself, is it just part of that area, or I know it's divided up, like there's the blacktop area, is it just the part that's
It's the small one. It's
just for the
bordered on the streets, like the Amsterdam,
Yes.
right? Not where it's connected to the
It's right
streets?
when you turn on 104th Street on the north side.
Okay.
So I just want to thank Mel because he did a phenomenal job and worked really hard on the initial draft, and then it went through several revisions. So thank you so much for putting it together. I think it's amazing. You did such a great job.
It's really easy when all the work is already done. Yeah, the question of what to do with it for now is up to you guys. I mean, I'd like to get all your feedback, incorporate whatever comments you have, and then come up with a strategy for how to share it. You know, I mean, I like to present rather than pass. Like when you email presentations, people, it doesn't have the same impact as when it's presented. And that's one of the nice things about having a PowerPoint, because it almost forces people to meet with you when, other than just like, oh, send me the document and it goes on their inbox. So this is meant kind of as a lobbying tool to help us convince people with our purse strings. So I prefer not to like email it, but it's up to you guys.
Although we'll definitely send everybody a draft of the Microsoft Word version at the end.
And this could go on a website, you could send a link.
I have a question. You guys were talking earlier about the need for.
By the way, this is Alberto Cruz. Okay,
Welcome.
former CB7 member, head of the Y.
Yeah. So you guys are talking about an inclusive playground, especially. My background is actually working with autistic children at Children's Aid before I went to the Y. Have you thought about adding any components that have to do with snoozing? Snoozing is a different play activities or play apparatus that are used for children with autism that are all sensory based.
How do you spell that?
Snoozling, Snoozelen. If you Google it, you're going to see a bunch of bright type of designs and apparatus of different.
Just to let you know, one of the things we're looking at when we look at all the different special needs is tapping into all the resources of organizations that deal with different special needs. So yes, the answer to your the short answer to your long question is yes, we are going to incorporate all the needs of every child, whether it be autism, whether it be hearing impairment, sight. So in terms of autism, there are a lot of things that we're looking at. So we're looking at lighting, which they're affected by. We're looking by sound, which they're affected by. And so we're going to, yes.
If I could add, also looking at a quiet space.
Yeah. Quiet
space within for those children who don't want to engage right away or want to be a part of the playground. Yeah. So we started to look at it, but any ideas or we're always open.
Is there anything from, thinking about the Microsoft Word document that you have in front of you and this particular PowerPoint, is there anything that's missing that you think we should add?
I mean, I think that it might be helpful to add what the normal playground costs so that they can see the comparisons, that we're not talking something crazy here. We're in the realm of.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna answer the question first. I know that Parks has a budget.
Yeah, their budget's 2.2, I think.
I mean, just have we looked at
I heard 2.4.
Are we seeing that budget or?
No, I haven't seen it.
Does it reconcile?
But I can tell you that outdoor space on the rec center, which is probably twice this space, the budget's 4.4. So it's,
I just want to comment on why not to do that.
Okay.
Although I understand what your thinking is. Because any one playground, we have to find an equivalent size playground and equivalent area and so on. So we could come out with one that's higher or lower, and it won't be relevant to the situation. But I understand what you say. I don't think anyone would find this outrageous.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's within the ballpark.
Looking at it.
The other thing, if I can add, the other thing is this makes it such a unique recreational space that it is hard to compare it to any other recreational space, meaning that it may not necessarily be more expensive. It just may require different types of input than a typical playground would. So, yeah.
You want to turn this off?
Is there anything else that you think is missing from the PowerPoint or the Word document that we should add?
Is there any research out there about success of these type playgrounds in terms of children's development and socialization? Like when you're talking about this, what just came to mind was like Israeli playgrounds are very much set like this. Is there research out there on why this is so important or the strides that kids have made through this? Because I think that might be helpful also to see like what's the next step to it and why is it so important?
Luke, are you still there? Luke? Hello? Luke?
Yes, I'm still here.
Did you hear that question?
I did. I'm not immediately aware of any specific research on the topic of whether or not there's a direct tie to an inclusive play environment and any development types whatsoever. I've got a couple sources I can tap for that. You may have a little bit more. So I'm taking notes as I'm listening in, and I will definitely look to that and touch base with you guys. Let you know what
I want to make a little bit of a comparison. It's not a direct comparison, but the benefits of inclusive education have been noted in terms of research. So we should probably get some of that research because play is just another form of education for children. So if you take away that social play from them, they are losing out on their education. So that's comparison.
And if we include playgrounds as a place where education takes place,
That's correct.
you know, it's not a play area only, it's an education area.
Can I make a comment? Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd like to commend the task force on this very worthwhile project. Speaking from the perspective of someone with a disability who grew up with a disability. As a child, I was an onlooker in all of these things happening around me. I always sat on the sideline and watched other children playing and was never able to take part in what was happening. So I think this effort is really commendable, and it will help children with disabilities to have a sense of inclusion, togetherness, and it will contribute to their emotional development, their cognitive development, and it will be beneficial all around because children who do not have disabilities, by interacting with a disabled child, they learn from their younger that there is not that much of a difference, and they learn how to accommodate you, how to, each one help one. Like I can gain from a child without a disability, and they can also gain from me with my disability. So it's really a very worthwhile effort, and I think we only stand to gain by it. And we just need to, and I'm very happy to see that we're all the different types of disabilities. So there will be a place for blind people with their tactile thing. There will be a place for children with autism, if you think about having a quiet space and, taking in all the special consideration for children with autism. So it's really a very commendable effort, and I would love to see it succeed, and not just succeed, but to see it replicated throughout New York City. Yeah.
I have to add something to what you said because I really believe in the reciprocal benefits for children with